Welcome to Epicor Eclipse ERP End of Months Reports 2 series. This presentation covers the user logins report. This is good for estimating if you have enough Eclipse user licenses for concurrent connections. As a general rule, I find that managers are cheapskates, and one of the things they love to be cheap on is the number of concurrent user licenses to their ERP programs. This is always a horrible idea because they make things so much harder on the IT person if you've got to, on top of all the other stuff you're dealing with, deal with users not being able to concurrently log in because you've run out of licenses depending on the time of day. You definitely want to size this properly, and having too many is, from the IT perspective, much better than having too few. When you have too few licenses, you have to do funny things like tweaking the timeouts down so tight that the system is automatically logging out people before they have their bids and their sales orders finished, or having a set auto logging on the counter or other areas, which makes things a nuisance. And I've also noticed that occasionally the Eclipse software does kind of a crappy job of keeping track of the licenses and counting it properly. So it's not unusual for it to think a couple more licenses are being used than what actually is. You're going to hate yourself if you have to keep fighting with that. So if you're going to have an argument with your manager over licensing and budgeting, this is a good thing to have an argument over. Anyway, this report is good for gathering ammunition for you to have that little battle with. And this is a legacy report, so even though you select it in solar, it's going to pop eTerm, and you're going to have to complete the parameters in there. This report doesn't have a whole lot of parameters to tweak with, and usually it's run one of two ways. Either you'd run it against all the users or specific user. And wanting to run it on a specific user would be wanting to get some idea of the login history of a particular user. An example here might be, years ago we had an outside salesman. He worked for the company for about 4 years, and towards the last few months of his career, which was being cut short because he seemed to fail to perform his duties particularly well, just for kicks I ran the user logins report and was rather shocked to discover that he had not logged into the system once in 4 years, and had relied entirely on his inside guys to do all his orders for him, and pretty much do everything for him. Thus, had we spent more time looking at the user logins, we might have had a better sense of whether or not this outside guy was worth paying for. Anyway, be that as it may, normally you'd run this against everybody, and it's most useful when you're doing max number of users, because it'll give you the concurrent number of people logged in for a period of time, and you have a good idea of whether you've not got enough licenses for the demand. The report does have the ability to adjust the information columns, but really it's very limited, so I just select default and pick all the columns because there aren't that many. Here's our user report run against all user logins, and here it gives us this wonderful little column of max number of sessions for that period of time. And now we can estimate when the highest demand is on the system and how many licenses are available, and now you've got ammunition to go fight with your boss with, which is always a wonderful thing. Now we're going to go ahead and run the same report, but we're going to run it on a specific user ID so you can see what that looks like. And now we see the login history for this specific user. And this completes our presentation on the user logins report. Thank you for your attention, and this has been Doug Fashing.